Today I'm going to be talking about the latest Tremonti album, A Dying Machine.
You're a dying machine.
So, it's been a little while. It's been a good few weeks. I don't know if you can hear it, excuse the noise, there's some work going on outside. Today we're here to discuss Tremonti, A Dying Machine. Now I'm in a good mood today. Got my new Maiden metal hammer. Came today. It looks awesome. I also got this shirt, Ghost Rats shirt from the new album Prequel, which I also reviewed. And I now have much more of a positive mindset even. The impact of more and more listens is very important while listening to music, and I got that with this album here, A Dying Machine. Now, A Dying Machine, Tremonti, on tour at the moment. They supported Maiden in Poland, I think it was. Seeing Maiden tomorrow on the Legacy of the Beast tour, which I can't wait. I wish Tremonti was supporting in the UK because that'd be a cool band to see. But this album, A Dying Machine, it dropped in, I think it was June, end of June or something. I was going to review it when it came out at the time, but I was very busy. I had exams and everything, and I was late to it. And when I realised how late to it I was, I went, right, I'm just gonna do this review whenever I get around to it. But it'd be wrong to ignore this album and not review it, because it is a big album of this year, and it is a very good album of this year. So I feel like it'd be wrong to ignore it, but I'm just doing it late instead. And in fact, I am glad I left it a little while. Obviously, you won't get as many views and stuff, but it doesn't matter to me. This album review will be more accurate because I've had more time to listen to it, and it is really how I feel about this album. Now, when this album dropped, I thought it was pretty good, but upon further listens, I grew to like it more. As I've heard it more and more, it has become one of my favourite albums so far of the year. So I brought the album recently from HMV, along with many other albums. Got a bit out of focus. And many other things. Now the album actually looks really cool artwork inside the CD. Sorry, inside the cover even. It's a cool looking CD. I picked it up recently with Ghost Prequel for the 2 for £15 thing, among some others. But anyway, A Dying Machine. This is a concept album, and I'm going to be honest. I haven't listened to much of Tremonti's solo stuff. I'm a big Alterbridge fan. I really like Alterbridge, and I love Tremonti's riffs, I love his playing style, I love his solos. But yeah, I was really into Alterbridge. I love their stuff, but I never, sat down and listened to Tremonti's solo records. But when the first song from this album, the title track, got released, I gave it a listen just because I saw it on my YouTube feed, and I was really impressed. I'll get to why in a minute because I'm going to discuss all the tracks, but I really liked the title track, and I was like, wow, I'm definitely going to check that record out when it gets released. And it got released end of June. I listened to it, thought it was pretty good. The more I've listened to it, the more it's grown on me. So that's what I'm going to say about this album. Keep listening to it because it will grow more and more on each listen. And yeah, that's definitely what's happened to me with A Dying Machine. It's just got better and better more times I've heard it. So this album's a concept album, and if you've seen any of my videos on here before, I like concept albums. I reviewed not Ghosts, thinking of the shirt. I reviewed Wasp's album Re-Idolised, the Crimson Idol re-recording. I also discussed what was the other concept album I did? Attention by Shinedown. I like concept albums. I think the music's a great medium to express stories through, and to write about various topics from different subjects. It's a great album to tell. So it's a great way of telling stories through music, and because you can do it through so many ways, obviously through the lyrics, through the playing and everything. It's just it's a great way to tell stories, and I feel like A Dying Machine does that. Although with this review, I'm not going to be getting into the story because I don't know it. This album is pretty deep story-wise. It's very, it's quite confusing. I don't know the story. I haven't actually had a chance to read it, but I know there is a novel coming out soon, I think, to go with the album. But I know it's something about a machine. A man makes a machine and to love him, and it ends up killing him or something. And it's a crazy concept album, but I like that. And although I don't know the story, you can tell it's a concept album just by the way this album flows. and I don't know, just I like the way this album flows. I think the pacing is spot on, and I really enjoy it. Also, Tremonti, Mark Tremonti. We all know he's a phenomenal guitar player, and we heard his vocals in Alter Bridge's Waters Rising, which is a great track. But this album, he really shows how good he is vocally. I really wasn't, I didn't know that he had a voice like that, and he's a fantastic singer as well. And I really like his voice. So Dying Machine kicks off with the song Bringer of War, which has a really, really tasty riff. Really fast paced. It starts off with a little like drum beat, almost like a marching band, then it just kicks into this huge riff. And Tremonti shows his vocal ability straight off the bat here. And this track is really, really strong, fast paced, punch in the face opener to the album. And I really enjoy this track. It's almost borderline metal. It's not quite, but it's definitely on that sort of verge. And it's a very heavy rock song, and I really enjoy it. Really strong opener to the album. Next is From the Sky. Now this track here, From the Sky, reminds me a little bit of Alter Bridge, just because it's just got similar riffs and stuff. But From the Sky is a cool song. It brings the pace down a little bit, and it's got some big sort of harmonies going on in the chorus. That's what I was looking for. Big hooks, big harmonies going on in the chorus here, and it's a decent track here, From the Sky. It just helps to bring the pace down a little bit after the instant thrill of Bringer of War. And I think it works really well. It's the second track on the album. Now third is the first track I heard from this album when it got released, called A Dying Machine, the title track. Now A Dying Machine, really impressed with this song. It starts off with a little drum beat, which shows how lovely the drums sound on this album. The production on this album is spot on. Everything sounds beautiful, and it goes into this really heavy riff. And Tremonti's vocals on this song really impressed me as well. This is where I went, oh, he actually can sing really well. A Dying Machine, he really pushes it, and shows how great his voice is for this style of music. Now, the thing I found quite cool about A Dying Machine was the heavy parts, is like the man talking to the robot. I think it's a robot, or cyber, whatever it is. I think it's a robot. I'll say it's a robot. And the clean parts, the robot talking to the man. So it's sort of, this is what I mean by music's a very cool way to discuss and tell stories, because it's like two different sides to the story in different parts of the song communicating and like exchanging speech. And I think it's a very cool song and a very cool way to do that. And I really enjoyed it. Dying Machine, absolute banger, one of the best on the album. Next is Trust. This helps to bring the pace down again after the first three songs, two of which being really fast paced, and one of which being sort of quite a groovy hard rock song. Trust, I think it's just been released as a single because I heard it on Planet Rock the other day. This is a cool song, good vocals, it's a bit slower, it's a little bit of an Alter Bridge side to it again, and I really like it. Just, again, the pacing of this album is really good, and this song works nicely where it is. It's the fourth track on the album. Big hooks again in the chorus. Great vocal performance from Tremonti, and it's another decent track. Next, the pace is picked back up again next with Throw Them to the Lions, which is a really fast song for this sort of stuff. Real intense, got a great riff, and some great vocals again from Tremonti here. Throw Them to the Lions really helps to show Tremonti's playing here, because it's proper, I don't know, it's very fast and it's very straight to the point, and it's just, I don't know, at this point I was really grabbed by the album, and this album really knows how to sustain your attention, I think. Next is Make It Hurt, another good sort of hard rock song. This one again has a little bit of an Alter Bridge vibe to it, which is cool. And a big chorus with Tremonti saying, I'm going to make you hurt. And again, another just decent track here. Next, track 7 is Trapes, which is a bit of a slower one again. Again, after the burst of energy it has, it helps to like reel it back in a little bit. Trapes is one of Tremonti's best vocal performances on the album, I think. Really cool song, and it sort of starts off quite slow but builds up into a big hard rock song, and it's cool. I mean, it just helps to like keep the listener entertained, but bring it in a little bit, calm it down a little bit before going into the next track, which also does the same. The next track 8, I think it is. Yeah, track 8. It's called The First, The Last. Now, this is one of my favourite songs on the album. It's almost a bit of a ballad. Starts off with a very beautiful guitar part, and it's a very cool, like, soft track, and it shows that Tremonti can really write, these powerful ballads. I mean, he showed that in Alter Bridge, but doing something solo like this really shows his songwriting as an individual. This song is a fine example of that. Some fine vocals again, and a really nice song actually. I really enjoyed this song. As more of a softer song on the album, and it's picked up again afterwards with the track called "A Lot Like Sin," which is a big, soaring hard rock anthem, and very, very cool track. This song, first couple of minutes, it's a real sort of just grooving hard rock song, but then it sort of slows down a bit, and there's this high guitar part, just like odd notes. It's going, or the riff's going on in the background. It's just really simple but really effective, and I really like this track called "A Lot Like Sin." The pace is picked up again next on "The Day Where Legions Burned." You can tell by the title that's going to be a heavy track. This song again, all like pretty much metal. It's very, very straight to the point, very intense, and a really, really enjoyable track with Tremonti's vocals soaring in the chorus here. Another really nice one. Really, really solid track. And I think about this album, all the tracks so far have all been solid. Like, there's been songs better than others. I'd say that "A Dying Machine" and "The First to Last" and "Bringer of War" are right at the top. I'd say songs like "Traipse" and "Trust", they're pretty good. They're enjoyable. And it's the same with "As the Silence Becomes Me." It's an alright track. It doesn't blow me away, but it's just a solid song. It fits nicely where it is. Some fine vocals by Tremonti, and it's an alright track. Track 12 is the more catchy, sort of almost radio single. People are saying it was pop punk. I don't really agree with that, but I'd say it was more of a straightforward rock song. And that is the song "Take You With Me." Now, I've heard that on Planet Rock a few times. I can see why, because it's certainly got that radio appeal to it. But it works really nice where it is. It's more of an upbeat song, especially after songs like "The Day Where Legions Burned" and "As the Silence Becomes Me." This song really picks the pace back up, and it's more of an enjoyable, sort of just easy to listen to, fun rock song. Tremonti said it was about sort of like bearing your scars, just staying true to yourself, and I can see that. I can see the commercial appeal for this track as well. This is where I actually went, oh, Tremonti's voice is actually really nice on this. Really big chorus, huge sort of catchy anthemic track this is, with some real upbeat verses. And I actually enjoyed this track. And the pace is brought down nicely to the end of the album with the song "Desolation." Desolation is quite quiet, quite sort of stark almost, for the first couple of minutes, and it's good. It works nicely. It's a natural end to the album, and then the last little bit, the guitar comes in, and it goes into quite a big sounding end to the album, and I like it. Now track 14 even, which is the last song on the album, is called "Found." Now this was an outro, and I mean, if you know the story, it probably makes more sense, but I didn't really see the point in "Found." It's like 3 minutes, and it's very quiet drums and some atmospheric things going on, and I mean, it works as an outro. It could have been a bit shorter. It doesn't really do anything. It's not bad by any means. It just didn't need to be there. I get why it's there, but I mean, if you knew the story, even you'd probably get it a bit more. But "Found" it's an okay outro, but it's just very stark and a bit dull. But I see why it was there, just to bring a resolve to the concept, I guess. But yeah, this is a really good album, as I said. It's really solid. But when I first heard this back in June, the day it was released, I got to sort of "A Lot Like Sin" sort of area, so track 8, track 9, and I started to zone out a little bit. I like the songs like "A Day Where Legions Burned," but when it got to nearer the end, I was starting to, when I first started this album, I was really brought in, I was really drawn in, and by the end of it, I was starting to sort of like drift off a little bit. Like, I was listening to it, like, yeah, this is cool. But the more I listened to it, the more these tracks grew on me. The second half of this album, especially, and this is a really, really solid album from start to finish. Now, there's you can see the Alter Bridge influence on this, but I also feel like this is heavier than Alter Bridge. There's some real heavy stuff on here, such as "Bringer of War," "A Dying Machine," "Throw Them to the Lions," "The Day Where Legions Burned," and maybe "A Lot Like Sin" a bit as well. But then there's the sort of the tracks that Alter Bridge, you know, maybe Creed. I wasn't into Creed myself, but you know, that Alter Bridge sort of style, like from the Sky, Make It Hurt. They were reminiscent of Alter Bridge, and I really like that. Obviously, Miles has done his solo album this year as well. I also reviewed that. That was Year of the Tiger. And despite the fact these two albums are very different, they've both had successful albums this year, and they've both been good. Now, as I said, the more I've heard this album, the more it's grown on me. I've heard this album several times since its release, and I like it a lot more than when I first heard it. And when I first heard it, I had a good impression of it. Now, I'm curious to know the story. I look forward to getting to know that, because I feel like that would... I wish I could have spoke about that with you, but it's not on. I couldn't find it online or anything. So I'm not sure of the story, so I can't talk about that. But what I can say is, I know this is a bit of a crazy concept album, but very, very enjoyable to listen to. Some really solid tracks on there. Now, while I'm here, I'm going to compliment the production. Production sounds absolutely stunning on this record. Drums sound spot on. That big sounding rock drums sound really nice. Guitars really, really heavy. I think the best way to describe it is meaty. There's so much, you know, they sound really, really good. Which is good because this is a very riff-based album. Especially, you know, the songs like Thrown to the Lions and Bringer of War. And it's a very riff-based album, and I think that really helps to you know, elevate this album, because if the guitars didn't sound that great, you'd lose a lot. But this album's production is fantastic. Bass sits quite nicely in the mix as well. And let's compliment Tremonti's vocals again while we're here. In future, I maybe like to hear him try something else, but that's just me being overly picky. Because his vocals sound really good on this album, and I really enjoy listening to him sing. He's got a really fantastic voice. So there is my opinion on A Dying Machine. Now, when this album came out, I would have rated it 3.5 out of 5. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. It's well deserved. It is a very interesting album. One that I will be listening to again, especially now I have it on CD. It's a very cool looking album, isn't it? But yeah, it's a very cool record. I recommend you check it out if you haven't already. It's one of the albums of the year for me so far. It's a very, very solid album. Very, very solid. There's been some cool albums this year. We had Machine Head back in January. We had Ghost back in, was it June that come out? We had Tremonti back in June as well. I think it was July Ghost come out actually. You know, I've had some really cool stuff this year, and I think that there's going to be more to come as the year goes by. We've got Alice in Chains at the end of this month with their new album Rainier Fog, I think it's called. So yeah, we've got some cool stuff coming up, and I'll be a bit more consistent now I'm off. Now I've got a load of time, so yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing some new music, because this is a fantastic album and one that I'll be listening to again. So yeah, thank you for watching. If you like what you saw, feel free to check out my other content. I've got Miles Kennedy on here. If you've seen this, you're probably interested in hearing that. I reviewed his latest album, Year of the Tiger, his debut solo album, which is very different to this. And there was another successful album of the year. What else did I review? I've reviewed quite a few things on here. I'm trying to think. I reviewed Shinedown, that was earlier in the year. Yeah, all sorts. So check out the other stuff. If you enjoyed, subscribe, and I'll see you all again soon.
In the year of the tiger.